You know what I hated to see in the aftermath of that too is the media drama, and of course everybody loves the drama of finding out who the killer was. And what kept bothering me was they would put a picture on a headline of Charlie Kirk, in many ways a saint, next to this picture of the killer. And I'm like, they should not be on the same platform. They should not be in the same picture grouping. They should not even be on the same page. They shouldn't even be in the same newspaper.
And they're the same size, aren't they?
The same size next to each other. Charlie Kirk did not ask that person to be associated with him. Welcome to our back porch. We are two authors and artists happily married for over 20 years, parenting two boys and sharing glimpses of our lives with you. Lean in and listen to our unedited conversations as we share on art, parenting, politics, culture, and how our Christian faith colors it all. I'm Dale Fincher, and this is my wife, Jonalyn Fincher.
Hi.
And this is our back porch conversation. Today's conversation is about why we pause for Charlie Kirk. I wanted to take this time to put our own thoughts and feelings together about it. Everybody's talking about it, and I think that some of the ways things have resonated with us, I feel like hasn't been fully articulated the way that would be satisfying to me. So I'm glad that we can meet and talk about this together.
Yeah, me too. We come at it from very different perspectives in terms of how we process it. And I'm looking forward to you having a place to share all of your thoughts, well, as many as you can gather and remember. I think it'll be useful for people to consider just different ways to approach death like this, sudden death, murderous death, and also Charlie Kirk's legacy and his life.
That's right. Now, those listening who haven't heard who Charlie Kirk is, you have by now. There's no doubt in my mind. He was a Christian, outspoken Christian, and he also was active in politics and political recruiting, trying to bring hope and trying to help the youth who have been heavily indoctrinated in anti-American ideologies to reconsider that there is actually a good life available to them, and that if the American vision can be restored, that good life, you would be free to live that good life. And that's what Charlie Kirk was about. And so on just, 9 days ago, from the time we're recording this, he was assassinated while doing an open forum at the University of Utah. And the outpouring around the world of support and gratitude and wanting to pick up the torch or the microphone where Charlie left it has been, that support for that has been overwhelming. It's really remarkable. And we haven't in our lifetime, and nothing like this has happened. The last time you see this kind of assassination, this kind of a destruction of a public figure, an innocent man, was Martin Luther King. You saw, he's not a politician, he's a civilian, but he has a lot of political influence. And with presidents, you saw, Ronald Reagan shot, but not killed, but JFK was killed. And I know that they killed Charlie Kirk because of that blend of his faith, but also political influence, because you cannot separate the two ultimately. A person who stands for Jesus publicly cannot separate that from politics. You can't. And we could talk a little bit about the nature of, what martyrs were martyred for historically and all that, but that's who Charlie Kirk was, and he put together an enormous organization that was very influential in getting Trump elected. And I'm sure that, has something to do with the motivation. And he's also has been influential in universities and high schools all over the country, developing a movement of people who care about the things that matter.
I think there are quite a few people who have followed us over the years who would like a summary of why being a Christian automatically means you are political. Because there's a lot of Christians who assume that you can be apolitical or just you don't want to be divisive, or that your politics requires that you veer left and care for the poor and needy and the government programs that help the marginalized. So maybe you could just give maybe one or two sentences on why you think being a Christian means you do have to be political. You can't just...
Yeah, I'm happy to say it, because the Christian stand at the heart of the gospel and the heart of the Christian story in the Bible is that Jesus is the king. And kings are political rulers. Whenever you see, when you see the very first martyr, Stephen, standing up, who is he standing against? The political rulers. The reason they kill him is because he's talking about a power that's larger than they are. When you see the Christians killed during the Roman Colosseum days, when we hear so much about that, it's not because they were sweet little people over on the side who were just, handing out, some food to the poor people. It's because they did not swear allegiance to Caesar because they had another king. That's political. As soon as you bring God's ways of living life, and if he is the creator of all things, which means he's the creator of everything that Rome is sitting on, every rock, every stone, he's creator of the humans that are in it, the ability to have reason and to think. Every single thing in life has its origin in God. So when we talk about what does it mean to live a moral life, then we're talking about God's territory. And if we're talking about freedom, that's actually God's territory. And so taking a stand for Jesus is a political stand, because you're taking a stand with a king above all other kings.
That's helpful, and I can hear people saying, well, what about that statement where Jesus says, well, my kingdom is not of this world, and people misinterpret that to mean politics doesn't matter to God. It's about heaven and where you go when you die. But that's not what Jesus was talking about. Mm-hmm. He was talking about the rock that we build our lives on, to use another metaphor, and that the kingdom that God is building will outlast all the kingdoms of men. But it doesn't mean it starts when we die. It starts now.
Right. He wasn't just talking about heaven. And if I could speak in that really briefly,
please do.
Imagine if he said the opposite. My kingdom is of this world. And then Pontius Pilate has somebody to target. But there is nobody to target. There's no kingly organization that Jesus is running. So it has to be of another world. It has to be the reign of God, not the reign of man. And so that's why Jesus also says the kingdom of God is within you, meaning the reign of God in the world, starting with the Jew first and also to the Gentile, is allowing God to be king of you. And that's the brilliant part of God's design. He doesn't come in with a thunderclap to say enough is enough. He does that later. But first he says,
we'll do that
let's
later.
see how many people are willingly on the side of reality, on the side of God. And so that's why he is so fully accurately answering that question, because to answer it the opposite way would have been a nonsense answer.
That's helpful. I also think of in that passage where he's talking to Pilate, he's really clear with Pilate that the power Pilate has been given to him. He would have no power to decide the future of Jesus' life unless that power was given to him by the Father. So
God allowing Pilate to do what he's doing.
I think yes, exactly. It's very helpful, because to talk about Charlie Kirk is to talk about a man who would not compromise and divide religion away from politics.
Yeah.
And the common, nicey nice way to play Christianity is you don't put up yard signs with political candidates. You don't talk politics at your barbecues. And you assume that your religion and your politics is a private thing, meaning it's not robust enough to stand up to public debate with your friends, or is something that is so controversial it will destroy your friendships if you bring it up.
That's right.
Both of which reveal a terrible immaturity in American adults today.
Huge.
And Charlie Kirk was an example of somebody who refused to live in that immaturity.
That's exactly right. He rose above it, but he had the courage to integrate the two. Now, whether he integrated them perfectly, that's a different discussion. But he knew the two had to be integrated together in order for them to make sense. And if you listen to his talks, you'd realize this is my view as a Christian, this is my view as a conservative. Meaning that I can stand on the authority of the Bible, but if I'm going to make a law or a statement or a policy for everyone, including Christians and non-Christians, it has to stand on reason. You have to be able to argue for it without simply going to the authority of the Bible. So, for example, if you were talking about gay marriage, you could say, well, here are the verses in the Bible. However, if you're going to talk about it in a public square, you have to say, well, these are the reasons according to nature and the way things are made. We have bought in, sadly, Christians have bought in for, I want to say, like at least 150 years into this notion that, one, the Bible is not reasonable. We just believe it, and you either take it or you don't. So you don't have to explore the Bible and say, I wonder why God thinks this about gay marriage. I wonder what he thinks about relationships. Like, God has a logic, but we've removed that God was logical. He just makes statements, and we just had to follow them, whether they make sense or not.
That was our cat jumping over the sign. He's having a lot of fun.
He is hilarious.
Just giving you a little exclamation point.
What was I saying?
Well, you're saying that we've removed the Bible.
Oh, yeah, that the Bible is reasonable. Mm-hmm. We remove that. So we're not thinking, what does God think about this? We're just thinking, like, what does the Bible say about it?
It's like an insider sort of pact we make to, like, all people on the inner ring understand the Bible, but nobody else is going to. I think Calvinism has harmed people's ability to realize that the Bible is reasonable, even to people who don't know God. Like, it can stand up with incredible stories and witness without people understanding or turning their lives over to God. In other words, the Bible is a document first of history, and it communicates things that are accessible to people.
Totally. And where you say the Calvinists are being confusing? These cats
He's
are
jumping into
crazy.
the paint bucket now. I'm so sorry.
We're having a serious conversation over here. This cat is named Mushi. We actually just got kittens recently. And Mushi is the grandson of Levi. And so that's how he got his name.
Well, Calvinism says, like, there's that part of Tulip that says, if you don't know God, you're unregenerate, you're dead in your trespasses and sins, and so you can't actually be awakened to any truth about God because you're like a dead person.
I see what you mean.
And so people are like, it's like the presuppositionalist view of apologetics.
Yes,
like, you're not going to understand anything because you haven't been regenerated by the Spirit of God, and you're not one of God's children.
I hear what you're saying. Yes.
And so those people, when they do evangelism, it's completely different from Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk approached people as if their minds were intact now.
And they had a choice to engage reality or not. It wasn't like reality was cloaked away from them, and that therefore they must live a self-destructive fantasy until God somehow intervenes. And they had to become part of the elect in order for them to see this reality.
He didn't believe that. I don't believe that either.
Me neither. And that's the first thing, is we thought the Bible wasn't reasonable. It didn't follow the contours of the way God made us to be, to understand, reason, and get at it. Doesn't mean we're not flawed. But God has reasons for what he writes and how he does things. It follows logic. That's going to teaching the Bible to my boys. They get that immediately. When we're saying, why did God do that? We automatically go into the tools of, like, what's the best explanation for why God chose that? Wow, this is consistent with his character. Awesome. The second thing, first thing, Bible not reasonable. Second thing we've done is we have allowed secular, pagan, 19th century philosophies to get us to believe that our faith is something done in private. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if it's in private, it can be disregarded and pushed to the side. Mm-hmm. It doesn't deserve public hearing. Mm-hmm. Or even if you are in public, it doesn't serve to be informed when you're giving a public statement. So Christians need to be on the sideline so that the secular people can run the show. That is... Or
the Christians who are pretending to be secular or acting secular just so they can be included in the public discourse.
That's right, and acting all neutral. And none of that. Everybody that's in the public square, nobody is neutral. Everybody is bringing their preconceived notions about what reality is, morality is, law is, and the purpose of man. And all of them might be in conflict with each other. And what Charlie Kirk was trying to do is to say, what is the most reasonable explanations for some of these fundamental questions that we have? Mm-hmm. Because if some of our answers are not true, that's going to lead us down a road of destruction, which we have been witnessing for decades. And he's stepping in and speaking to college students and high school students who are on a daily basis inundated with a false worldview, to the point that they will listen to the false worldview and swallow it, even if they're Christians, and they'll be listen to their worship music on the way home, not realizing that they're pagans in their minds, even if they're Christians in their hearts, in a manner of speaking. And Charlie Kirk's trying to step in and say, no, there's something actually deeper here and a better way to live, so that all of these things are congruent together, that God is the author of freedom and you can't have it without him, and that humans are made for a purpose and you cannot accomplish that purpose without understanding why humans were made. So I think a lot of Christians, when we talk about politics and Christianity being separate, have just simply bought into non-Christian ideas about how to treat their own faith.
Yeah, I agree.
And that to me is very damning. Look at all the martyrs through history. Why are they martyred? Because they're a threat. Jesus being king is a threat to all other kings. It's always that way. And when Jesus is your king, you don't bow down to another. And they don't like that. Who likes that? Even in a democratic republic, constitutional republic that we have in the United States, we even have rules. You're not allowed to be prejudiced and create laws that restrict speech and press and religion right there in the first. But we do it all the time. We have all these rules about what counts as a religious organization and whether or not you can have like special status for your taxation, so that will give you more power to serve out your purpose. And you're allowed to be sidelined, and so therefore you can't have any political speeches coming from your pulpit, or else you're going to lose your status. Like, that's not accurate. That's not reality. That's a fantasy that's been made, and I think it's a fantasy that has to be shattered. Charlie Kirk was doing a great job, I think, shattering that fantasy. That makes him one of the, in my opinion, right when I heard that he died, I threw a couple posts up on X, was that I think he was one of the most important figures in America today. He was only 31 years old, but he was already capturing the imagination of our youth to think about God and think about reality in terms of what it means to live a free life in this country. And he had a huge political sway because the millions that were listening to him are like, yeah, that's the direction we want to go. And those millions are growing up and they're becoming voters. And if they're becoming voters, that is a major threat. And if they could take him out, then there's a lot less people inspired, so that the public school system and everybody else can continue their march, indoctrinating every family's kids who send their kids there. It's not like, oh, I have a bunch of kids that are going to grow up in a Christian home. Like, yeah, but they're going to get indoctrinated at the school if they have not been taught the ways of God and the ways of reality, so that they can navigate that.
An example, an anecdotal example to illustrate what you're saying. I went to the local grocery store, and the cashier was wearing a cross around his neck. Could tell socially he was kind of an outcast by the cashier, the baggers,
yes,
and the managers. And I asked him, I said, kind of under my breath, because I didn't want this to be a public conversation, but I said, did the assassination of Charlie Kirk this week, it was I think 2 days later, it was on Friday, and he was killed on, I think, Wednesday. So did the assassination of Charlie Kirk rock your world like it rocked mine? And he looked up and he was like, what they did to him was so wrong. They shouldn't have done that to him. But I don't want to see that assassination. All the guys at my school just were playing it on repeat. I don't want to see that at 8 a.m. in the morning. They think it's a big joke. I mean, he was being so vulnerable with me about how painful it is to be in his school. And I said to him, you know, you do not have to just stand there and take that. You have options to stand up for what you believe politically. And they have chapters where you could join, turning point chapters for high schools. He's like, oh, my high school wouldn't allow that. It's a Democrat school. It's a Democrat school. All the teachers tell you how they vote and how wrong your views are at all the classes.
Terrible.
And I said, what year are you in school? He's like, I'm a senior now. He's a tall guy, a big guy. And I said, his name was Kirby. I said, Kirby, you have more influence than you realize. And he was quiet, checking my groceries, through beep, beep, beep. And I said, you can look up at Turning Point USA. Just look up turningpoint.com. Just look that up and see what you can do. You could start a chapter at your school. 18,000 people have applied to start these ever since he died. And his wife gave a speech. He's quiet. He's listening. I said, it's not an accident that I got into your line here at the grocery store. And he started bagging my stuff. And he said, I hope it wasn't an accident. I said, God bless you, Kirby. He feels so alone. And I remember going to public schools way back in the 90s, and the secularism, even in the tame 90s, was so palpable, and how scary it felt to stand up for my faith and to have conversations in all my classes about what it meant to follow Jesus. And I was studying apologetics at that time, and I had arguments, and I could hold my own. But it was so intimidating to feel like you were the only one. There was a Christian club on campus with like a grand total of 10 attendees.
And most of them had the mentality of like what we just described a few minutes ago.
Yes, you just huddle together. That actually is what breaks my heart, is most of the Christians I know, they huddle inside. They're these insular, we just take care of our own, we do our Bible studies, we dominate our lives with church events, and they don't have conversations with people who believe differently from them. I've been really wrestling with that, you know. I mean, not everyone is not called to be like Charlie Kirk, but people with giftings like you and me, people who God has asked to be courageous in places where we're not appreciated. We're going into enemy occupied territory. You know, what role do we have in moving forward? What is the legacy of Charlie's death, and what has that done to us in our lives? I hope we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting that how many people I saw as I was going through X and Instagram, mostly X, that's where I spend most of my time kind of getting a pulse on things. But how many people were saying, I feel so sad this week. I hear about people dying all the time. It's in the news all the time. But Charlie's death was different. I don't even know who he was. But I feel sad. Or like I went back and watched a bunch of videos. I didn't know who he was. And now I feel really sad. And now I don't want my party affiliation anymore. I don't like my Democrat affiliation. Look who's celebrating this. And that was a big part of the revelation when Charlie died. It wasn't like, oh, somebody died. It was somebody died and an enormous amount of people celebrated. Even before they knew who the murderer was. Enormous amount of people celebrated. And it was resounding to the point of like, you know what, doesn't even matter if they find the killer. Doesn't even matter. The cloud of evil is already upon it. The ideology has already identified itself. Now, if everybody went into mourning, oh, that was terrible, I can't believe it, what is this? It would have been like, okay, now who pulled that trigger, and who were they, and what were they thinking? But it wasn't that. It was, who is happy about this?
There were quite a few people who were happy when Martin Luther King was shot,
Absolutely.
too. When he was murdered, and you can't say this mentality of wanting to kill people who disagree with you has been going on publicly without any checks since W. I remember it rising up during George W. Bush's presidency.
You started to hear the rhetoric of,
yes,
it's better off.
He would better be dead. Mm-hmm. Why doesn't someone assassinate him? And nobody checking it publicly. People with power and influence, I mean, it's not going to be me. I can say that's wrong, they shouldn't do that. But someone who has something to lose, some skin in the game, has to say something. They have to refuse to avert their eyes or like laugh, giggle uncomfortably. They have to say, what you just said is wrong. And it's a check on me too, because when we started Solation, we were working really hard to make the gospel attractive and we don't want people to stumble over the words that have been defined poorly. And so we didn't use the word sin as much as we use the word broken and things like that. And what I realized is over the years, there are places I don't want to give up those words anymore. And I want to be able to say the word wrong. And damned, not as a swear word, but that road is paved straight to hell. You are engaged in a destructive way of living. Like, when can I say those things? I've been holding back so many places with so many people, with the whole like, well, you need to speak the truth for people who can hear it. And I think,
well, let me pause you for a second and just say, those who are the enemies of Charlie Kirk have been doing that all along. And that's the inversion we've been experiencing. And this is like the postmodern inversion, where they're like, oh, Charlie Kirk's a fascist. They'll say that in one sentence and in another, and they'll repeat it over and over and over again until the collective people, their groups of people, begin to believe it. And then they'll say in other places, fascists should be killed. Wouldn't it be better if we had a time machine, go back and kill Hitler? Oh, yeah, it'd been great if we killed Hitler. Fascists are worth killing. Fascists are worth killing. Fascists are worth killing. Homophobes. Can you believe all the homophobes? Homophobia is just awful, just awful, just awful, just awful. Oh, Charlie Kirk's a homophobe. That means he's just awful, he's just awful, he's just awful. So they have all these labels and these terms. These are their terms, their versions of sin, evil, wrong, worthy of death, swift and immediate. And even those high-profile politicians, none of the high-profile politicians after it happened said, I'm really glad it happened. There are some, as the week has unfolded, have come out and said that. But the big ones, like you think of like a Bernie Sanders, like this is just awful. He had a very somber speech about political violence. It's just awful. We have no place for it in America. But you can go back and listen to countless speeches and interviews of Bernie Sanders, who is calling everybody who is opposing to him a fascist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, Nazis, all of these words that mean sin, evil, worthy of death. And there's a great many people in the United States, partly because they've been stripped of any moral fiber through our education systems and through our media systems. They don't even have a backbone to know how to even think about any of this. Of course there's going to be trigger-happy people. Oh, that person's a fascist, he's been identified. Oh, I'm going to be a good person. I don't know what morality is, everything's relative, but at least this one thing is very clear. I'm going to be a good person. Take that person out. I'm going to be a good person and loot these stores. These stores need looting because these are the capitalist bad guys. I'm doing a moral act by destroying people's property. I'm doing a moral act by beating them up and damaging them, maybe even killing them because of the color of their skin, being white. Oh, privilege. This is a privileged person. He's privileged because he has been evil. He hasn't shared his privilege, which is why he's still privileged. We need to kneecap him and take him out. That kind of language is all over the place.
But it's the moral superiority side of it that I've been trying to avoid all this time. And okay, there's two things I want to say. I don't want to derail. I'm like just applying it to myself. I want to go back to Charlie Kirk and say, when you listen to Charlie Kirk beyond a soundbite and you watch the way he walks through these arguments with people on campuses, you realize that he's never acting morally superior to them, but he's also not compromising the bad things that they are doing that are bringing them death.
That's exactly right.
And so what I'm trying to say is, okay, cultural trends wise, I think with Monica Lewinsky and Clinton, there was a big aha moment in the left, and they realized that most of the morality language was captured by the right. And I vote to save babies' lives. I vote against abortion candidates. I vote for family values. So what they did is they began postmodernly to take these words and to own their own moral high ground and to play the same game and to shame people who disagree. And so now we're in the thick of that. And just watching that from my high school years to now, it seems as if the most moral social justice party is the left.
Charlie Kirk has a great thing where he talks about how many billionaires support Democrats. And the guy behind the microphone that he was talking to, he says, that cannot be. And he just rattles off, boom, 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 how much their net worth is, all these different people that support it. That's impossible. They're Democrats. They cannot be.
Because in his mind, Democrats are always the marginalized, the poor, the needy.
He had the wool pulled over his eyes so much. And Charlie Kirk was telling him, he goes, the people who are the oligarchs are the ones who are controlling the party that you support right now. You are just fodder. But I love his approach in which he came alongside the questioner and be like, I'm not attacking you. I'm addressing the people who are abusing you and hurting you. It's very similar that we did when we were talking about spiritual abuse with people. I saw so much myself, and so to tie off that little bit of the conversation, we have to use moral language, and we cannot be shy from it. Because if God's way, in the real way of the world of good versus evil, if we do not talk about it, the devil will come in and do the inversion and make evil into good.
Yeah.
And he will take the evil and he will slap stickers all over it that have all the good words. Mm-hmm. So this is social justice, which means we're going to attack a certain amount of people to pretend we're helping the poor.
Yeah.
And then the inversion happens. That's the Garden of Eden. God said, do this, and the devil turned it around and says, has God really said? Actually, you'll become like God, and therefore you can become these things. Every temptation the devil gives us is to invert reality.
That's right.
When Charlie, I want to move on to a different part of this. So a lot of people are sad. Everybody's sad. An innocent man was killed. There's no doubt. An innocent man who was standing for reality was killed. That's a very important part of this. Standing for reality and having momentum in helping 30-somethings and younger to understand the way the world really is supposed to be and the way it was made. That's a major loss, losing a voice and losing a courageous man that's willing to do that. One of the ways, so we all mourn. People mourn because of that.
Yeah.
A light has gone out, like a real light has gone out.
We grieve it very deeply, you and I, because we saw in Charlie Kirk giftings that we had.
That's where I was going to go with this.
And we saw him do things we tried to do. But we also recognize that Charlie Kirk had so many giftings we didn't have.
That's right.
He was able to fundraise like we could never even touch. He was able to network and remember. And he was able to come to the security of speaking his arguments and his clarity at such a young age. And he was blessed with so much influence at such a young age. He was so rock solid confident in the right things. And you and I know our combined forces could never, God didn't bless us to have a reach like anything like what Charlie Kirk has had. And to see him murdered when he was still so much energy and power left, you're left bereaved thinking, well, what do we have left? Who's going to
His work's not done.
That's right.
I know I joke that like if he would have, once he reaches my age, his memory wouldn't be as good. I'm really glad that it was in his youth that he really was able to have so much effect. That was really good. But you're right. That was something that resonated with me because I've been watching him for a long time and even thinking like, he's only 23? He's only 25? Wow, I remember when I was 25. A lot of these same questions are same ones that we tackled, and but we didn't do it in that kind of forum. We did open forums, but not like that kind of forum. Our forums were less hostile, and his ability to really then network and create chapters and do all that was just absolutely amazing to watch. He was one of a kind. And people say, who can replace him? And like, nobody can replace Charlie Kirk. Nobody can. But nobody can replace anybody.
That's right.
And Charlie Kirk himself would say he didn't try to find people to carry the mantle with him. He even, I watched one interview, and he's like, I'm not trying to train anybody to be like me, to do what I do. No, my job is to encourage people who want to do this. It's like what you and I talk about. We're looking for people who have fire in their belly. If you have fire in their belly, then it's like, all you gotta do is hand that kind of person material. They're gonna devour it because they're already motivated. Yeah. They're already moving in that direction. You could do an apologetics workshop for 1,000 people, and 0 of them actually get into the public square to proclaim the name of Jesus. They were like, oh, it was a really good conference that we went to. I feel so edified. This is wonderful. But you find somebody with fire in their belly and just say, you're doing a great job, I'm your fan. Oh, wow, thanks so much. I love what you're doing a great job. Man, that's so great. Do you have a book you could recommend that I can keep doing, what I'm doing? I'm like, here's a couple of books. I think you'd really love it, and it'll give you more in your toolkit. You're like, thanks. And then they're off to the races. Everybody that God is calling to do stuff is off to the races. And that's what it was for me. I wasn't like looking around going, oh, I want to just be like that guy. It was, I want to take what that guy has. So for me, like I remember C.S. Lewis, to me, I never didn't read a biography of C.S. Lewis. I just read all of C.S. Lewis's stuff because I wasn't interested in the life of C.S. Lewis. Mm-hmm. I was interested in how C.S. Lewis saw the world. Mm-hmm. I'm like, can I just borrow your glasses for a second? Because something you're saying about the world is jarring the world that I'm in a beautiful way. And I want those glasses. And you got to read and immerse yourselves in his world before you start to make sense of the way he sees things. So and one day when you immerse yourself enough, then you start looking around and be like, I see it the way C.S. Lewis sees it. And it feels ordinary. Whereas before it felt fantastic. Mm-hmm. Felt wonderful. Like, wow. Now it's ordinary.
It's your normal vision.
It's the normal. And that, Charlie Kirk learned to see reality as normal. And he's helping all these people with all these light bulb moments coming on and all these forums and everything. The light bulbs come on. Whoa, there's a reality there. Whoa, I want more of that. And the people with fire in their belly are just hunting after it. Like, I want your glasses, Charlie. Just give me your glasses. I just want to see the world the way you see it. Give me resources. I want to run with it. And I resonate with him in that way because when we were young and full of energy and full of vivacity, I mean, we were speaking in front of audiences all over the place. We were doing live Q&As in front of people asking many of the same kinds of questions. And we were addressing them. We were doing it online, answer. And it was great. And just the thing that I kept mulling over my head that if I had those gifts of networking like he did and the courage of fundraising the way he did, that bullet easily could have been for me. And you know what? There may be a bullet for me in the future. Maybe a bullet for both of us. Doesn't matter. To me, I don't want to put myself in harm's way, but I do ask, well, God, what would you have for me? When evil shows up, when you're just doing the work of God, you're not going to stop it. Only God can stop that. Because your only other option is to go hide somewhere. And hide somewhere is worse. You know what I hated to see in the aftermath of that too is the media drama. And of course, everybody loves the drama of finding out who the killer was. And what kept bothering me was they would put a picture on a headline of Charlie Kirk, in many ways a saint, next to this picture of the killer. And I'm like, they should not be on the same platform. They should not be in the same picture grouping. They should not even be on the same page. They shouldn't even be in the same newspaper.
And they're the same size, aren't they?
The same size next to each other. Charlie Kirk did not ask that person to be associated with him. He did nothing to earn that spot. But here he is, platformed, side by side. Your murderer, your abuser, put side by side with the victim, with the innocent. That bothers me.
It's something incredibly crass and immoral about journalism today, that they are not asking the questions of what kind of visual legacy they're creating for these people who are martyred.
I hate it. And I think it's been going on for a long time. I don't even want to say it happened today.
Yeah, Lincoln and Booth, I'm sure, were put side by side too.
Yeah, I bet they were. The sheer sensationalism of people like, ooh, there's a drama. There's a guy that was, the victim, and there's a murderer. Let's go watch another one of those dramatic TV shows about the serial killers and the unsolved mysteries and fancy music. And it's like, can we stop that, please? Stop the fantasy about what really happened here. We're indulging in the drama of evil rather than stomping out evil like a spent cigarette so we can celebrate what is good. Anyway, that really bugged the heck out of me, and I really noticed it this time more than any other time, how awful it is. It's awful we already put these vile people on the covers of these headlines. They deserve zero credibility. Their names should never be spoken. They chose to delete themselves the moment they chose the devil. And it's just awful. I hate it gives us no lesson. It does not exult in goodness.
It's pretending to be unbiased, but it actually, like you said, everybody who is human has a bias.
And you know what? Yes, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm watching some of these headlines where, the Democrats are playing defense. And so much so, I heard one guy, I think it was on CNN, on a panel, was saying that the killer, trying to humanize the killer as much as possible, not in the sense of like, here's a guy who needs redemption, right? Because that's humanizing to say he needs redemption. It's dehumanizing to say, may he be damned to hell. Even Charlie Kirk would say that.
He would want redemption for his
But
killer.
he was humanizing him in the way of trying to draw sympathy for him by simply saying, when he was up there on that roof with that gun, he could have taken the shot earlier, but he didn't. And he only waited till he was stirred by that question that was asked, and Charlie was answering it, and it was emotion. Just that impulse in that moment is what pulled the trigger. Not really the vile thoughts of a murderer, but really because he had a transgender husband or boyfriend or whatever. Anyway, something deeply already dysfunctional. That when he heard that, he pulled the trigger out of emotion, out of love, really. I'm like, there's the inversion. Wow. An absolute perversion on some of the highest airwaves for Democrat policy.
How sick to be able to try to make the murderer into someone that you have sympathy for.
Playing defense. They need to do whatever they can to make Charlie look bad and to soften the evil of his killer. Because they're watching the credibility go through the floor. But they've been killing their own credibility for so long by embracing evil and the fantastical fantasy, and not reality, not moral reality. They've been inverting. We've been watching it. We've been watching it for so
of Michael Scott when
long.
he's giving testimony for
the deposition with Jan.
Yes, and he says line. And because he's wanting to know what Jan wants him to say with
so she can
evidence.
Win the agreement, the arguments. Yes.
And I know what it's like because in the 90s, I sat on a panel evaluating a PhD student at Cal State Fullerton University, and she was studying Campus Crusade for Christ. And she was not studying as an insider. She was studying as can you believe these sick and deranged Christians who think they're going on a crusade in the modern days for their religious figure? And I remember the entire room had no interest in understanding what Campus Crusade for Christ, or CRUD today, was thinking and what motivated them. They only wanted to label and to get accolades from each other. Again, it's the inner ring, inner circle.
Cloister.
Yeah, echo chamber, the echo chamber. And I'm thinking, it reminds me a little bit. So in that room, I spoke up and I said, I don't think you're understanding the crusade concept properly, because the way the crusade, they're not talking about a crusade killing people. They're thinking of crusade as a crusade against evil in their own lives, much like modern day Muslims will say, we do not believe in jihad, holy war. We believe in having holy war against sin in our own lives.
And that was a good example because they all want to support the Muslims.
Right. I knew that it would be something they couldn't disagree with, and the whole room was icy silent. And my friend, who was a theist, atheist, Jewish scholar, sitting with me afterwards said, you totally spanked that entire team of professors with your knowledge. I said, it's not impressive knowledge. This is something anyone would have known if they had just talked to one leader of Campus Crusade, but they did all their research just observing from the background, like they're looking at these weird monkeys in South Africa. And so I bring that up because of the CNN guy you gave this example of, trying to make us all identify with the murderer of Charlie Kirk. This is a great skill to be able to get into the shoes of someone who's done something horrible and be like, wow, they actually had a reason for it, and let me see if I can understand it. I did the same thing when I read a psychoanalysis of Hitler and why he was the way he was. But this great skill of understanding people's motivations when you only get praise because you're doing it for the team that you're on, actually isn't serving anybody. Because if you can just applaud anyone who kills members of the opposite team, that same power can be turned against you in like a flip of a coin. The fame and the sway of
they don't care.
Popular opinion, no, they don't care. But this is what Charlie Kirk also would have done. He would have said, you're a pawn in the machine that's trying to crush anyone's independent, conscience-driven morality.
And maybe that's what you mean. Like, if this man is trying to garner sympathy for a murderer for the sake of his team, if his own team turned against him, in which he said,
the CNN
you know what?
guy.
Yeah, CNN guy might be like, you know what? I think that it's I think maybe we should kill babies in the third trimester. Just a little hint that maybe we shouldn't do it. That the machinery will turn against him, and he'll find himself on the wrong side.
Yes.
That's what you mean.
That's what I mean. Is everyone who's, and I feel very passionate about this because I saw my writings that were trying to show the value of recognizing women's giftings alongside men in the home and the church.
That's right.
Used by the left to say, see, feminism, Christianity, they go hand in hand, and the wave that was crested by people like Rachel Held Evans and so much of the leftist moral righteousness. And they rode
Immoral righteousness.
Exactly. They rode in reading my book, Ruby Slippers. And so I felt very used.
Very much. And the conservatives would also discard you because you didn't say it in the way they wanted to hear it. And this is what it comes down to. Are we in it for the team? Are we on team blue, team red? Not me. I'm on team reality. And I want team red and team blue to correspond with that. And wherever they do, I want to praise them, and wherever they don't, I want to condemn them. It just so happens to be that Team Blue has chosen anti-reality in its major platforms and among its major influencers. There's a lot of people on Team Blue that have no clue that that's what's going on.
They don't realize
They actually are more on Team Red than they realize. Yeah. But when it comes time for voting, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to remember a mantra that was said 30 years ago about we are for the people. And they're going to go down and vote because they think it's for the people when it's really against the people. Yeah. They've been duped into it. Yeah. But that guy who's showing all this empathy to the killer, a truly empathetic person, who's not CNN guy, who's not for teams, but is truly for empathy.
Yes.
Getting in the shoes of others.
Yes.
There was no empathy for Charlie. No empathy to say, let me get into Charlie's shoes and realize he's not a fascist, he's not a homophobe, he's not a xenophobe, he's not a Nazi, he's not all the things that we've labeled him as to justify people killing him. Mm-hmm. He's actually a good man. He's a family man. He's a typical American man, the way we would have celebrated American men for 200 years. He's responsible. He is building a business. He is reaching our young people. They're getting off of drugs. They're stopped having kids outside of marriage. They're getting married. They're having children the proper way. They're raising up children to be good people who are responsible, who aren't committing crimes, or starting their own businesses, all the things we care about Americans. They're people who believe in free speech, believe in defending your families. They believe in trial by jury. They believe innocent until proven guilty. They believe all of these things. And we call that Nazi and fascist. They believe that laws transcend, that there is a higher law that transcends even our Constitution. That means that you and I have rights, even if the Constitution was burned. That's not what a Nazi does. When there's no empathy for what Charlie Kirk really says, and there's only empathy for a murderer, it's a dead giveaway that they're playing a game. They want their fantasy more than what's real. And that's always a challenge for each one of us, whenever anything's going on. Empathy is learning how to get in the shoes of another person, and that's an important thing to do for everybody. We want to have sympathy and empathy for people to say, this is where you're coming from, I want to make sure I understand you correctly. But once I understand you correctly, it is still empathetic to say what you are thinking and doing is evil. Mm-hmm. And it is wrong, it's destructive, it's dysfunctional, and it will bring terrible dysfunction and destruction on you and your family and everybody that's around you. Mm-hmm. That is empathy followed with compassion. Telling the truth about something. If you're not going to confess the truth about your evil, I will confess it for you. That's an evil person that needs to be addressed by somebody. And if it's a crime, it needs to be addressed by the government. And if it's not a crime, it needs to be addressed by the community or the family or something, but something is awry. But I don't do that because I'm on Team Red. I do that because I'm on Team Reality. Empathy leads to compassion. Compassion leads to action. And what is the action that's necessary to align people with the way things really are and the way things ought to be? That's what Charlie Kirk was about. And to have a large voice saying that was a God moment in America. And that's why he's considered by so many as a Christian martyr. Because he didn't divorce his faith from his politics. He didn't divorce his belief in God from any of that. And as far as I can tell, he was doing the work of God in America. And he was killed for that. So he is a martyr, just like all the other martyrs. Taking a stand for God in Rome, taking a stand for God in Jerusalem, taking a stand for God anywhere.
In Utah.
In Utah. The cool thing for me is how inspired so many people are. And that inspiration, can last 20 minutes. It can last 20 days. For many, it'll last 3 months, and then it's business as usual. The Democrats have already proved it's business as usual. We've watched all their violent rhetoric all unfold this week. And even the ones who are higher on profile, they're starting to bring back calling people Nazis and fascists and all this all over again. The cool thing is how many people are inspired. If they really can set up these different chapters around, more chapters, already like 9,000 college chapters, and now they may have up to 30,000 by the time within the next 12 months. Wow. Whatever it is, if there can be consistency in leadership and truth telling in these places, that is a tremendous wave. If they can maintain it, and if they can, that is an amazing outcome. To me, the additional and even more hopeful outcome is knowing that God doesn't need Charlie. He doesn't need Trump. He doesn't need you and me. God can do what he wants, and he chooses vessels to do it. I just want to be a vessel that's ready if he wants to use me. I have a small set of gifts. God, show me what you want me to do with them. We've been in this a long time. Nobody can question our faithfulness that when we started this journey, we didn't putter out after 3 months. I've been going at this since I was 17.
Yeah.
I'm 51. Consistent, faithful, learning, growing, speaking, helping. It's a fire in my belly. And now I'm looking at a different season of my life. I don't have a big organization to work through. Can I join an organization? Maybe, but in some ways, if I do that, I give up some of the things that I'm building right here in my own family. So this week, an opportunity came up for me to teach Living with Questions to students, and we talked to the organizers of it, and it sounds like it's going to happen. Helping students in my town think about reality, think about God, think about how it influences living as a free person in this country and in the world. So that's opportunity. God opened that up. I didn't. He just says, here's a door, and I want you to walk through it. I'm doing Living Room Bible, which, if you're still listening, it's livingroombible.com. You could see more information where I'm teaching my boys the Bible. Because I have a torch to carry, and I have a torch to pass on. Violence may not come to my family. Not my living family right now. It might come to my family 4 generations from now.
Yeah.
There may be martyrs. If I don't pass the torch to my kids and them understanding the necessity of passing the torch to theirs, to theirs, to theirs, to theirs, they will not have a torch to hold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We repeat these things because it's the good life. We repeat these things so we can stand up against the hurricane. And that's what we're doing. The daily faithfulness to God. Say, God, you want righteousness to reign in the earth. I'm one of your vessels. Show me how it's done. That's what Charlie did, and it's so neat to watch somebody actually do it out there in public, living large. And it's an inspiration to say, if Charlie can do it, we can all do that in our sphere of influence.
That's right.
And where we are.
Did you want me to read what I'm doing with my...
Oh, I would love for you to do that. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
Jonalyn wrote a newsletter the other day about the face of evil. And we thought it would be a good thing for her to read here in the quiet as we close out.
This is called Why Paint the Witch? And I wrote it the morning Charlie Kirk was murdered. I finished it the evening he was killed. It began yesterday morning. Written September 10th, 2025, 8:30 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. On rare occasions, Dale shares a news story with me. The girl was Ukrainian. She was riding public transportation. Unprovoked, a black man stabbed her while the bus full of men and women watched. Her name was Irina Zarutska. I watched Dale squirm under processing what he would do if he were in that train car. I listened as he shared that the stabber was a violent and previous imprisoned offender. I thought of our sons, at the protection we found in our home, and how easy it is to fall prey to that demon of powerlessness in the face of murder. Why do we need honest paintings of evil when there is so much evil in the world? This evening I saw the headline that Charlie Kirk was assassinated at Utah Valley University. Charlie Kirk attracted Dale and my notice years ago. A man of integrity and courage who followed Jesus, a man who had tremendous influence with college students, who could slice through the intellectual bankruptcy of so many communist ideas in higher education, snuffed out. Charlie Kirk was the young conservative's voice, the influence, like Martin Luther King Jr., only 31 years old. He left a wife and 2 young children. But if you Google him, he's labeled already as a right-winger. This means there won't be history books noting Charlie Kirk in the next 20 years. There won't be trendy boutique shops with signs lauding him like those praising Ruth Bader Ginsburg for her so-called courage. If you're paying attention, you know the news is bad. 2 weeks ago, a transgender person snuffed out the lives of Catholic school children in Minneapolis. This isn't about race, gender, or political gun violence, the typical talking points, as if guns or knives destroy people on their own. Murder is always about false ideas that weak-minded people believe and take to the streets. Murder begins with lies, with trusting something that looks beautiful, but actually smuggles in a lie meant to drive a wedge between you and reality. And murder, like any evil, always leaves us believing the first little lie. We are powerless unless we do something. In the face of our powerlessness, we stare blankly at our work. In the face of murder, how can I paint watercolors? Isn't it an ostrich in the sand position? Isn't it like fiddling when Rome burns? It is not. And then there's an asterisk here. I'm happy to note that I'm not the only one using art rather than violent protest to communicate evil and good. Elon Musk led the charge to create 300 murals of Irina Zarutska's face in American cities. Painting evil is God-given action and potency, and it is why I was created. Today my work is to paint evil, specifically a witch. It began with COVID. Years ago, the COVID years stunned me up. I think that's a typo. Years ago, the COVID years stunned me with the systemic violence of our country, isolating us from each other in the name of health and safety. I wrote and painted Saving Lives in response to the silenced stories. You can watch this healing film of art for free on YouTube at my YouTube channel, Jonalyn Fincher. You can experience beautiful art with meaning rather than art that celebrates wanton destruction of sexuality, destruction of humanity, family, and faith. Anytime we choose beauty and truth, we are owning our God-given power rather than powerlessness. With the Saving Lives art show complete, I'm turning to another story to paint, the fairy tale story of Hansel and Gretel. As I study different historical versions of Hansel and Gretel to write a modern retelling, I trip over how many times the women in the story force their will upon children. The mother, stepmother locking them into their room, the witch locking Hansel into a cage, forcing Gretel to work, forcing her to eat scraps. We are each responsible for the knowledge when we meet families where children are being coerced and ruined. forced into roles too small and murderous to their souls. This is where murderers are made, in homes and schools where no one cared to study them. I think of Hansel and Gretel as I watch school buses scroll past my home, children sitting isolated since the COVID years, one per seat, slumped against the windows, isolation intact. Who is caring for them as they walk home? Perhaps many are. Perhaps no one is. Mary Harrington, the most intelligent voice I know on the hypocrisy in progressive feminism, writes that women have 3 major life stages: the maiden, the mother, the matriarch. She's put words to the way feminism actually shames the coming-of-age work of the mother. The majority of my readers are mothers or matriarchs. The fan mail I receive comes prominently from matriarchs. You, matriarchs, are in the season of sharing wisdom with the next generation. You have lived the maiden stage and raised your children as the mother, and now you have stored up discernment for others. The Bible calls your silver hair your glory. And yet, notice what our world does with matriarchs. Just watch any movie and see the roles they play. You are cast as hags, witches, and crones in the fairy tales and the movies, ugly and encroaching, manipulative and grasping, preying on the weak. It's the young who play the heroines, the maiden with her sex appeal, perpetual sexual power, fruitless, but, quote unquote, free. So why paint the witch? The fairy tales get something correct. It is always the elderly who steer. It isn't just the hand that rocks the cradle that rules the world. It is the wives of wealthy men who protest and picket, who steer the funds and careers of the entire clan. Even among the most Christian and patriarchal of homes, all healthy marriages give due deference to the woman, the women of the hearth. We do indeed have power. As a watercolor artist, many grandmothers, many matriarchs love my work. That's why you're reading this. You bless me with honor by reading my work, even though I am still in the mother stage. So I take up painting an evil witch carefully. As I paint this murdering woman, I will be representing her in human form that shows competence and intelligence, for true evil always wears a beautiful face. The witch's face must hold enough beauty to draw in an unsuspecting child. I am drawing from my own life, where I know a little bit about how beautiful women can be evil too. Read more in the chapter, Frailty, Thy Name is Woman, in my first book, Ruby Slippers. The witch cannot be easy to hate because that's not the way reality is. Witches are attractive, powerful, usually well coiffed, and certain of the justice of their ways. I'm painting one study after another. As you read the headlines and pray for ways you can use your gifts for powerful mercy and goodness, please also pray for the hearts of these women and men in power, women and men like yourself. We need more matriarchs and less witches in this world.
Thank you, Jonalyn. And so we pause for Charlie Kirk to remember it's up to us to bring goodness in this world and to point out the evil and save people from it. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please subscribe and give a positive review. We'd love that. To engage us as artists, go to jonalynfincher.com. You can sign up for Jonalyn's thoughtful newsletters. You can also see her work there and hear the stories of it. And if you want to hear stories of the Bible, you can begin that journey by going to dalefincher.com. We'll see you next time on The Back Porch.